Cyclone Gabrielle is the most significant weather event New Zealand has seen this century. The severity and the breadth of the damage that we are seeing has not been experienced in a generation. This morning we declared a national emergency for only the third time in our history.
Yeah, so back in February, when Gabrielle hit, the impact on the region was pretty devastating, to be fair. We were cut off effectively from the rest of New Zealand for close to about 4 days. That's internet, power, roading, the whole lot. For us at Gisborne Fisheries, it just meant we couldn't operate, so we had to very quickly try and work out solutions for the business. From a factory level, well, we've gone and we've invested in generators and putting in 3 10,000 litre water tanks and a UV filtration plant, which was a significant cost for us. Support post-cyclone, not much at all, to be honest. When it happened, it just seemed like we'd gone back to the dark ages.
Yeah, so we had expected the cyclone, the reports were coming out, and so I just recall the day before I was downstairs with our management team talking about how we would prepare for this. Really unsure then how major it was going to be, but we knew there was going to be a weather event, and so we had some plans in place, but it blew our minds what it ended up being. In first view, other than some leaks, there wasn't any damage, but of course the whole place had no electricity. When you're 80% of your business relies on refrigeration and chilling, that can have a massive consequence. And the power had already been out by that stage for 24 hours. We made a decision that day to get rid of all of the fresh fish that was in the chiller and anything that was in our small freezers. So the chair of the iwi went on to Facebook and said, come on in, we're giving away fish and seafood. And we basically organised a drive-through operation where any staff that were here helped out, and we gave out, I think we probably had about 7 tonne of fish in the chiller that was slowly, deteriorating. It was fine as it was then because it had been iced, but it wouldn't have lasted much longer. And then we gave away the kinners, the crayfish, all of the product that was in the shop that wasn't going to last more than a day without the chilling facilities.
From a fishing perspective, not long after we went out, there was a lot of debris on the ocean. There was a lot of debris like islands and islands of trees floating around. A lot of them were actually getting caught in river currents, so there was big streams of logs going along, So we came across quite a few of those. And some of them were quite a long way out to sea too. You'd think, a lot of people thought that they'd be close to the shore, but a lot of it was actually a fair way up. The problem is that debris that's lying on the ocean floor could possibly get caught up in our gear. And if it's a decent sized bit of timber, it'll actually stop the boat in its tracks, and then it becomes quite dangerous from that point.
When we're going out there, we're in a 4 metre swell. And as we're coming over the swell, we had to dodge forests. That's how dangerous it was. So our whole bay was just a forest in the water, and it was really dangerous. So we had to turn the boat around and come home. We couldn't fish.
There were areas where it looked like an island of logs, so the whole bay was just totally full of logs. We've had vessels hitting logs, but not only that, fishing gear is being damaged.
The first day out, I had the gear in the water only 15 minutes and stopped, and it just came up choked with debris and a few tears from ripping things, but yeah, so it was pretty disconcerting. And then the question was where to from there in terms of the rest of my grounds. So what's safe, what's not. It's kind of like just asking yourself where you want to start walking through a minefield. So we have this unanswered question of can we fish with our existing methods in these areas now that this event has gone down? It's dangerous and it's destructive for equipment to go into those areas and hit submerged debris. So how do you find out what's there to either avoid it or to identify that you can cope with it? Well, one of the options is sort of sophisticated sonar gear, like an ultrasound at the bottom if you like, and see what's lurking. So what the sort of group discussion was, well, why don't we, bang for buck here, why don't we get the fishermen out there with gear, set the gear up to be safer in terms of being able to break away if you hit something bad, and then you know for sure that you can either get over that ground or you can't. So that's quite likely to be a log or a piece of wood, that one. Now, if you recall, this is 40 metres of distance. So 20 metres, 10 metres. So that's probably a 4 metre log on the bottom.
We're doing what we should be doing. Fins and FirstMate have put it together, and I think, I know that most of the fleet here are happy with us locating these logs. We're building a picture of what's actually happening out there. Well, apart from the logs, of course, that were swept out into the ocean, causing a navigational hazard, and even worse when they sunk because you couldn't see them. My biggest concern would be the silt. And if you look today at our main rivers or drive down to Marine Parade, you'll see a big milky green streak of water going up the bay. So it's still pouring into the bay because the mountainsides have been slipped. The slips on the mountainside have not been recovered, and every time it rains it picks up more silt, and this is liable to go on for some time. That is going into the ocean, settling on the ocean floor, but the other concern is, what is that silt carrying? When it flooded the area, it went through farmyards, orchards, people's garages, everywhere. The problem will be, what did it pick up? What chemicals did it pick up? And what is the effect of that going to have on the environment, the food chain of our ocean?
We've had a major problem with sediment in Hawke's Bay for a very long time, and that chokes up all sorts of different life cycles, pyrrhus of crayfish, reducing sunlight getting down into the water column for assisting the growth of the plankton. It just has lots of knock-on issues. So, but like what comes into the bay over a period of a year, what the cyclone dumped in was many times that within a day. So it's a huge shock.
Some of the best ideas will come from within industry itself. I think there needs to be a lot more collaboration between government and industry going forward. One of our skippers touched on it earlier in a conversation that, they just keep getting up and taking the punches, really. Unfortunately, that's starting to stick a bit now, and I think we're going to start to lose some good people in this industry.
I wouldn't say anybody's really left as yet. We're just hanging in there by the skin of our teeth, but this might be the last year. We just got to hang there and just seeing. I don't know how long we can carry on for. Basically, if it's not viable, it's not viable.
We don't get a paycheck every week, or we're not on a salary, and we don't get holiday pay, and we don't get bereavement leave or anything like that. If you don't go out and catch a fish, you don't get paid. It's as simple as that. So you're under the pump the whole time, basically, because you don't know from week to week when your next paycheck's going to arrive.
Just put a lot of pressure on my wife and her employment. I didn't make any money for nearly 2.5 months. None at all, me and my crew.
So for us, of course, we had an immediate cash flow stop, and the customers that we supply fish to, obviously, they got disrupted as well.
It's not only the fishermen themselves, but it's the families and the auxiliary workers that get their income off those vessels. When the fish don't go into the factory, the people can't process it. So consequently, they can't get paid. And a lot of guys work on a system where if they don't get anything to do, they don't get paid.
People have had to make absolute drastic decisions to be able to try and cope and survive if they want to stay in the same industry. I do know of a guy locally here that had to go and fish out of Wellington, go lining out of the Cook Strait. I mean, just a lot of normal people, they just wouldn't think, what's it like, you have to get up and go to the other side of the country just to be able to go to work. You know, that is just such a massive headache. So it has, people really have had to uproot their whole lives to be able to go and try and work in another area just so they can survive.
No one could actually see what was going on out there, and there was absolute chaos ashore, which had to be attended to immediately. And I think we were put on the back burner, so to speak. It was a case of out of sight, out of mind. You could drive up the road and see the houses all flooded and whatnot, and the damage done, but even I can't see the damage to the ocean floor.
What the hell am I going to do? How am I going to support my family? You know, and I'm just one person. What about all of the rest of the fishermen and their families? What about them as well? Hey, is there anything in place for us when it comes to that? Since FirstMate have been involved, yes, we now have we've got an organisation that talks about that. I got a phone call from one of the FirstMate people down in the South Island at the beginning of the year talking to me and asking me, what can we do? I says, well, just talking to me is, you know, that's a good thing, because nobody does. Nobody comes and asks you how you're doing. Why has your boat been parked up so long? And they know that you can't get out because not even the recreational fishermen can get out there.
We've hosted a couple of events here in the Hawke's Bay and also in Gisborne, where we've just got together with our fishers and talked to them about what support they felt they could have had.
We want to make sure that what happened for the seafood industry with Cyclone Gabrielle doesn't happen again. And that's where, you know, FirstMate is there to sort of help them and guide them.
So after FirstMate became aware of the impacts of Cyclone Gabrielle on the seafood industry, we communicated that to the likes of Fisheries New Zealand and the seafood industry. Funding was made available to run various projects to support those impacted. We've created a business continuity plan that can be used by anybody in the seafood industry to plan for any other adverse events, to keep their business and their family running and operating and largely prepared. Collaboration with the government and with the industry is the key to help the people on the ground. So that's something that we will encourage going forward, that collaboration will always produce the best results.